Hey, what's up guys, Rev here. So I think it's becoming very obvious over time that there's a great number of people in the gaming industry who have an open disdain of gamers. We recently saw this Reddit post where a game designer claims that they hate gamers, and one of the main reasons they cite for this is the fact that gamers seem to be rejecting DEI and other woke initiatives being forced into their games. Now, one of the funniest consequences of these situations is seeing these people in the industry pushing DEI and other woke nonsense just to have that stuff backfire on them. And that's exactly what we're going to see today, a person in the industry reaping what they have sown. So we're going to begin with Dungeons and Dragons, which is obviously a franchise that has been enjoyed by countless people for decades now. However, over the past couple of years, a lot of people have been growing very concerned about the direction of this game because its developer, Wizards of the Coast, and the decisions they have been making. For really lack of any other term, they've been going woke, and a lot of people have noticed, and it's really crippled some of the lore in the game. In fact, this is a real decision by their development team from only about 2 years ago, where they removed some monsters like this because they believed it was problematic. Now, why is it problematic? Well, they claimed that these monsters too closely resembled real-life minorities. Yes, these are the progressive people. Now, that sentiment is something that their team has openly shared, that they will cater to the delicate sensibilities of a small number of their players, despite the majority of players disagreeing with those decisions. They don't care about the majority of their fan base. They care about the loud minority of people who are complaining the most. And that is not just a bad decision as a game designer. It is a bad decision whenever you're dealing with customers. You listen to the majority, not the minority of people. However, a lot of these bad decisions can be traced back to people like Kyle Brink, who is a former executive producer at Wizards of the Coast. And as you can see, their account is currently private. Now, this person is famous for this quote right here stating this: "There's been mistakes made in years past where people assumed that Dungeons and Dragons players were all, white dudes in a basement, which has been a faulty assumption for a lot of years and gets more and more false every day. And so in my viewpoint, honestly, guys like me can't leave soon enough for this hobby." So basically, their wish is to push out white males from Dungeons and Dragons, which is absolutely crazy. As always, pay attention to these people being featured in videos like this. They almost always are racist towards white people and /or are self-hating white people. It is a very recognizable pattern at this point. But his whole thing is that he wants to see white males pushed out of Dungeons and Dragons. Well, congratulations. You got exactly what you wish for. You're fired. Yes, this person has been fired and replaced with a new executive producer at Dungeons and Dragons. And here she is. And again, you want to get rid of white males in the space? Well, you've been replaced by a female. Now, is she going to be a benefit to the franchise? I don't know. I haven't looked into her background or her resume, but he got exactly what he wished for. He was pushing all of this nonsense, and it backfired to his own detriment. And speaking of some new hires in the gaming industry, Kenney has landed a new position at CD Projekt Red. Now, for those who don't know, she is the former associate narrative director at Insomniac Games who is working on the Marvel's Wolverine game. Now, she is someone we have covered before on this channel. She is someone who definitely likes to inject a lot of woke narratives into not only her job, but the projects that she's working on. And as you can see, she landed a job with CD Projekt Red, which is most well known for games like The Witcher as well as Cyberpunk 2077. So let's learn a little bit more about her, okay? So this headline is not joking right here. She is famous for this quote on DualShockers, where she said, "We have to pull every lever we have," referring to the injection of LGBT themes and characters into games. And again, as always with all these things, people aren't mad that there's LGBT characters in games. They're mad when it's clear that this is something to check boxes or to push some kind of an agenda. That is very clear when people say things like we have to pull every lever we have. We have to use every resource we have to inject more characters like that into games. It seems like it's a very obvious point of agenda. And she's also someone, as referred to earlier, who was the former narrative director on Wolverine. And I found it very interesting that a few weeks ago, she completely wiped her bio. She removed any mention of the Wolverine game. She also removed her pronouns and all those things. And people thought maybe this was a step in the right direction. However, we probably now know it's because she was getting ready to be hired at CD Projekt Red. And like I said earlier, we have talked about this individual before. She has also reposted and supported narratives from other members of the industry who claimed that you can't be racist against white people. Again, this pattern unfolding once again with a member of the industry who is woke. But on top of that, she is the narrative director, or the former one, for the Wolverine game. And besides just the previews of the storytelling that already have people concerned, the designs of these characters have people even more concerned because, as you can see here, Jean Grey is not looking too good. And no, this is not some botch in Photoshop or something. This is the actual design. There is no excuse for this in the year 2024. To make a character look like this, it has to be intentional. So who's making this? Why would they make a design look like this? Well, things become a lot more clear when you realize that Insomniac Games, as well as the Wolverine game, hired the consulting advice of Sweet Baby. And despite the fact that Sweet Baby is private, screenshots like this still exist from 2021 where they announced that they're working with Insomniac Games on the Wolverine title. And on top of that, Mary Kenney has made it very, very clear that she supports Sweet Baby as well as other narrative consulting firms like them. She, in fact, made a 12-part thread on Twitter defending Sweet Baby and their actions. And as always, Sweet Baby is in the shadows, still private. They've been private for pretty much a year at this point, and it's odd because for a company that claims to be so proud of their work, they sure do like to hide their involvement with their projects. They're sitting in the shadows, making sure nobody knows what they're working on. Don't you see the problem there? Don't these game journalists and members of the industry see the issue there? It's very blatant, but they don't see the red flags. And to add insult to injury, it was recently discovered that IMDb accidentally leaked all of the upcoming games for Sweet Baby Inc. That is very embarrassing. Who needs DEI detected or anything like that when they just do it themselves and other members of the industry do it themselves? But of course, people want to know what Sweet Baby's involved with because pretty much everything they touch ends up being a massive flop and often has to do with the terrible decision making that comes from the consulting advice of Sweet Baby. And of course, like I said, Mary Kenney would announce that she is a part of CD Projekt Red, and for a lot of people, that is a very concerning development for that studio. And despite all this, no matter how much evidence continues to mount that these agendas are being supported and pushed in the gaming industry, you'll have people like this claiming it's all a ruse. It's all in your imagination. You're crazy for thinking these things. And you can see this quote right here saying, "If you're angry at the games industry for being too woke, I think you're a dummy. And if you fall for the right-wing grift and allow someone to profit off your anger, the grifter thinks you're a dummy too. Don't be a dummy." That is the new excuse for anything that happens. If someone uncovers something going on with DEI or what have you in the industry, they're immediately the defense is, well, they're just a grifter. What they're saying doesn't matter, they're a grifter. They just use this as a defense against anything that disrupts their narrative or exposes what's going on in the gaming industry, and it's very obvious how insecure they are about all this stuff. And on top of that, you can see Melanie Mac quoting them saying, "You've got to be outright delusional or born yesterday if you can't see the blatantly obvious hijacking of video games by woke ideology and activists." Where this individual would reply with this saying, "I wish I was born yesterday because I'd be a little baby that couldn't use Twitter and I wouldn't know that hateful, low IQ, waste of life shit stains like you exist." Ah yes, a very mature response to this. The second you question any of their narratives, they end up lashing out like this with name calling and things like that. It's very childish. But overall, yeah, things aren't looking too great. More concerning developments in the realm of the gaming industry, but at least we saw an example of one of these people reaping what they have sown and losing their job in the pursuit of the DEI initiatives that they've been pushing themselves for quite some time. But for now, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys all enjoyed. As always, feel free to share your thoughts about today's topics in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time.